our government is paying Twitter to take down information, or at least they were doing that until Elon Musk took over. These are big issues. The First Amendment used to be a big issue for both parties. Democrats used to be the greatest of defenders of the First Amendment. And now things are topsy-turvy, and there doesn't seem to be interest in the majority party in protecting speech. We've gotten to this point where people think the speech is okay if I agree with it or if I think it's right. But if I think it's wrong, if I think it's anti-scientific, by golly, it should be taken down. Well, science is always being debated and disputed. Anthony Fauci, in committee, told me directly that he wasn't funding gain-of-function research in China. We now have evidence. We have the grant numbers from the NIH that he funded it. And you say, well, he says it's not gain of function. We now have an email that came out last week where he says in the email, summarizing a conversation from February 1st, 2020, where Anthony Fauci says, we're suspicious of a lab leak. He says at that time, a week later, he's saying it's crackpot theory. He says, we're suspicious of a lab leak because we know they're doing gain of function research, and he describes the research. The research he describes is actually the research that he funded. So something's going on here, and there ought to be investigations of all of this, and we should use the committee to try to get into this. 1 million Americans died, and we really haven't thoroughly looked at, could this have come from a lab? If it came from the lab, what are we going to do to try to prevent this from happening? We're 3 years in, and there hadn't been a valid or significant discussion of what are we going to do. So I would say, rather than passing dozens of bills we don't have time, perhaps we ought to spend some time trying to figure out what we can do to prevent 1 million Americans from dying with the next lab leak.